All right, welcome everyone to our Student Employment Lunch and Learn. We're going to be going over a lot of things, so hopefully we can get through it all. First, we're going to talk about the steps for hiring a student worker. I know a lot of you have hired in the past. There are some new people not here, but will watch this video later on. That hopefully this will be helpful for everyone to reiterate what you've already known, some new things, and just some changes for this summer. A lot of this will be regarding CUW, however, it will be also for CUAA, so hopefully they'll be able to watch the recording later on and get some insight into it. So the steps for hiring a student worker, we're going to go into this a little bit in more detail in a minute, but assessing the needs for your department, checking your budget, creating or updating your job description, posting your position, reviewing applications, interviewing, extending offers, notifying the applicants that weren't selected, and completing the payroll paperwork. So pretty much the same process as hiring a staff person or another employee or adjunct, basically the same process, just a little different with paperwork and posting. We'll then go on to online resources. The portal has changed a little bit, so we have a new channel on the employee tab, and the student tab, the channel for student employment, changed a little bit as well. So both of those channels will have extra resources for all of you while you're hiring and while you're employing student workers. So first off, hiring steps, assessing your needs. You want to take a look at what tasks you need your student workers to be doing. They should be educational, but also helpful for the department. Because having a student worker, it should be beneficial not only to you, but also to that student worker, so that they're learning skills and gaining experience that will be helpful once they get out of Concordia and into the real world. Basically, a main part of our job in hiring student workers is to make them better employees for their future employers. Just like we're in a higher education institute and teaching them the information that they need to know for their future field, we also want to get them those skills that will help them. So the education part gives them their program information, and then that student job helps them learn how to be a productive employee for their future workplace. After you kind of take a look at what you need them to do, take a look at how many hours a day, how many days a week, and then how many weeks a year. And then multiply that out to see, how many students you may need. And then you can use that against the hourly wage to see what will fit into your budget. Because that's the next step, is taking a look at your budget and seeing if you have enough in your budget to take care of all of the students you need, or if you maybe need to ask for more money, or maybe if you don't have a budget at all right now, maybe it's you're hiring for the first time, to take a look at that, how much you might need for the academic year, for the summer, and then extrapolate that out. Checking the budget, the line item is going to be 60050. So usually departments don't really have anything to do with those 6,000 numbers, but in this case, you'll want to keep an eye on that, because you want to try and keep your student employment budget in line with what you have. And if you're consistently going over, taking a look at where you may be able to adjust that. And then compare your needs and your budget. If you're consistently going over budget, are you using students that maybe you don't need? Maybe you have students that are ending up working on homework or just maybe sitting at a desk for a little bit. Take a look at those hours and schedule them for you when you really need them. I know some departments use students just to kind of have a body there. So if you can get away without having that person there that's just doing homework or playing on their phone, maybe reassess if you really need that body there. Or maybe you can find out other tasks that they can do so that they're actually learning while they're working and getting paid for actually providing a service to the department. Next, when you're posting, you'll have to create or update your job description. A lot of departments already have student workers, so there probably is a job description somewhere. If you don't have it, you can check with the Center for Academic Advising and Career Engagement with Whitney, or one of the student workers over there can help. But you can just email them and say, I'm looking for a student worker. Do you have one for my department? Or they could send you a sample, and then you can adjust it as you see fit. After you have that job description, you're going to post it on Handshake. In a little bit, we'll go further into how to post that position, what information you need, and all of that good stuff. The main thing, whatever you're doing with your posting, you want to direct those students to Handshake. Just like with our regular employee positions, if you're posting elsewhere, we direct them to the applicants to Applicant Pro. With students, we want to direct them to Handshake and really make that central location for students to look for on-campus employment and for departments to be posting their positions on there. After you have the job posted, you want to review the application materials. Check what academic program they're in, check what year they're in school, because maybe you need somebody that it takes a couple years for them to learn what you need them to learn. So maybe you want a freshman or sophomore, but maybe you have a position, you just need as many students as you can. It's not that detailed, it can be a junior or senior where you're only going to have them for a year. So kind of gauge that need right there. Also take a look at their experience. As college students, some of them are going to have a lot of experience, but maybe it's going to be in something not really related to what your position is. But maybe they'll have skills from that position that can transfer into it. Some will have no work experience whatsoever. They've been going to school, now they're here, and now they're looking for that first job of theirs. And if we can all remember way back when we had our first job, it's a scary experience. So we don't want you to discount those students that need that first job experience. Because number one, they might be ready to be more engaged, better able to learn, because they're just, okay, I've never worked before, let me know what I'm doing right, wrong, and all those good things. Any students, no matter who you hire, whether it's their first job or their third or whatever, you want to make sure that you're helping them learn and grow in the position that you have for them. And a lot of times, as a lot of you may know, a lot of our students become employees here eventually. So you're also possibly training them for taking over a position here and becoming one of your colleagues. So we want to make them as best as they can be for that future position. And you also want to take a look at their availability. If you need somebody that can work at least 4 hours a day, 3 days a week, don't hire somebody that can only work 2 hours a day, 2 days a week. You want to look at what their availability is and what your needs are. And maybe you can adjust that depending how many student workers you need, but you want to double check to make sure that you're not hiring somebody who can't really do what you want, because we want it to work for the student, but also for the department. Once you've gone through the applications and taken a look at their experience and what year they are and their availability, you can take a look at who you want to interview. So when you're looking at who you want to interview, you don't have to interview everyone who applied. Sometimes it's kind of nice to give you experience interviewing people and give students experience with the interview process. I know it can take a lot of time and effort, but even just doing a phone interview, you might end up talking to somebody who you wouldn't have otherwise. So getting that experience on both sides of the line is good. You should definitely do an in-person interview. You don't necessarily have to do a phone interview, but sometimes it's just a good idea to kind of gauge the interest and their availability and get some of those basic questions answered. Then do the in-person interview. And then once you finalize your in-person interviews, decide which students you need and want, who's going to fit in best with what you're looking for. Sometimes you're going to get students where, you have for sure, 1 or 2 that you're definitely going to hire, and the others maybe didn't interview so well or didn't do so, great with the questions. But sometimes you're going to have several students who are really great, interviewed really well, but you only have one position open. Don't be afraid to refer them to other departments, or if you know some other department that's hiring, let them know, I'm sorry, we don't have positions available for you, but I sent your name to maintenance or accounts payable or a different department, because departments all over campus are looking right now for summer workers, and once the school year starts, they'll be looking there. So trying to help spread that, those good students around so that everyone can get enough help. Once you've selected the people that you want to hire, you'll extend that offer. You can do it over the phone or the email. Sometimes the phone is more exciting, but a lot of students now almost prefer email or text. Usually an email is nicer, that way you can put it all in there. And when you're looking at extending an offer, generally for student workers, the starting range is $740, and you can put that in there. There's a few positions that require a little more skill, so they pay a little bit more. But if you're not sure what your rate is for your department, you can check with HR and we can let you know what that rate is. One other thing, when you're checking through your applicants, I know we've all been talking about budgets and how to save money. Another great way to save money is taking a look at the federal work-study students. Now, they might not know, you can ask that in their interview, but they fill that out back when they do their FAFSA. So they might have forgotten if they've done it. But if you have, 3 great students and you're kind of having a tough decision between the 3, you can check with HR and say, are any of these students on the federal work study? And then we can let you know. The great part about that is if they are federal work study, excuse me, 75% of their salary will get paid through a separate account, and then only 25% will get charged to your department account. So it's a great way to save money and maybe increase the amount of student workers that you can fit into your budget. So you can ask them in their interview, but if they're not sure, you can check with HR about that. So once you have the people that you want to extend the offer to, like I said, you can do it via phone or email. And then once you get that accepted offer, you're going to want to let the other applicants know that they weren't selected. A lot of times just a nice email is fine, thank you for applying, we've decided to go with other applicants. And if you did have those good interviewees that you want to share with another department, you can put right in the email. However, I did share your email or your name and information with this department, and somebody may be contacting you to see if you're interested, or please go to this, apply for this job because I shared your name, something like that. So lastly, after you hire the person, you're going to want to fill out the student will have to fill out the hiring or new hire paperwork, the payroll paperwork. Most of you are familiar with this. The one sheet is the student payroll authorization. That's the one that has the account number and the student's or supervisor's signature. And just a reminder that whoever signs these authorization forms should be the person who's going to actually be approving their online timesheets. Several times we get somebody who signs the sheet who isn't going to approve them. If you're filling out the forms, but somebody else is actually going to be approving, and in your department you know that, put a note on there. Like signing, this is okay, but this other person is going to be approving. Just so we know that there's that difference. Because I know some departments, maybe the person actually approving is really busy and there's somebody else that helps them with the hiring process. But once they get hired, they're kind of under this other person.
Where do they get those forms?
The payroll authorization form is in HR. Okay. And then there's 2 forms. There's one for the academic year and then one for summer. So that's the only time students have to fill those out, is if they're starting in the academic year or in the summer. If they don't have to fill out a new form for winterim or the spring semester. Once they fill it out in fall, they're good till summer. If they fill it out in summer, they're just good until fall starts. The only time they would have to fill out a new one is if they're getting a second job or something throughout that academic year. Because students fill out one of those authorizations for each department they're working on, so that we can make sure we assign the proper approver to that position and student. There's a confidentiality handbook agreement that's on the portal right at the end of the student employee handbook, which we'll show in a second. The Form I-9, just like with adjuncts and other employees, we need the physical original hard copies of their IDs. And hopefully this summer we're going to be encouraging students and reminding them, if you want to work on campus, bring your IDs. Because a lot of them don't bring them, and then they're having a photo sent of one of them over text or email. And we really want to stop that. For 1, security reasons, and for 2, legally we really need to see those physical copies. Every time we don't see a physical copy, we're not doing things properly and could be audited for that. So,
just to clarify, we don't need
of the IDs though. We just need the
Okay.
people, we just need the students to bring in the originals, but don't make copies of them.
Right, don't make copies of any payroll paperwork ever. Adjuncts, employees, students, any of that. That should only be kept in HR. But yeah, so they need to show you the original copies or original forms.
The way that I've been doing this, and I want to make sure that I'm doing it right, is I basically do the payroll authorization form, and then I say, go to HR, and they'll help you fill out all of your other paperwork.
That's
Do
fine.
you want us doing things like collecting I-9s and whatnot?
You don't have to. If you're comfortable with it, that's fine. It just saves a little time in HR. But there's some departments that fill out I-9s for adjuncts pretty often and are pretty comfortable doing it. So it's just easy enough for them to do the one for the students as well. But if you send them to HR, we're happy to help them fill that out and look at their IDs.
Does that have to be done every year or just once?
It has to be done, the payroll paperwork only needs to be done once unless they don't work for more than a year. So similar to adjuncts. So we always want that current payroll paperwork. The W-4 for the tax information, and then the direct deposit form. So all normal forms for the payroll packets that we use for adjuncts and as well as student workers. Any other questions on the hiring steps? Next, we're going to go on to our online resources. So they're on the which tab are we on? On the student tab. It changed a little bit from what it looked like before. So if any of you have a student tab, it's going to be on the left side towards the bottom, and then it's right by their student tax information. So this channel up here, that's always been there. So the student tax information, it has their W-2, their pay stubs, their earning history, their 1098 for their tuition information. So now right underneath that is the student employment information, which is going to include a link to Handshake so that they can search for on-campus or off-campus employment, the student employee handbook, online timesheet instructions, which do get sent to them every pay period if they don't submit their online timesheet before we take a look. And then the 2019 summer employment and housing information, because that has changed for this summer moving forward. So we'll get into more of the details in a little bit about that. On the employee tab, we have a new channel, the Student Employment Supervisor Information channel. On this channel, you're going to be able to have the links for posting an on-campus job, both here and Ann Arbor. The Student Employee Handbook, because it's good for supervisors to know what's in there as well, so that you can be holding your students accountable and knowing just the general guidelines for student employees. There is also now a student employee evaluation. Just like we as employees have a review once a year, it's a good idea to do a little evaluation with your student workers. Maybe you do it at the end of each semester or once a year, but just good to keep that communication open between the student, let them know if they're doing great or if they have areas that they can improve. And having that open dialogue with them will just make them better employees going forward. If things are not going so well, or maybe if it's just that students are graduating, we also have a separation of student employment sheet now. There's been a couple that have been using them, but it's just a very helpful tool, especially for us in HR, to know when a student leaves employment. So usually we'll just deactivate all of the students at the end of the academic year, and then reactivate them for summer, and then deactivate them, and then reactivate them for fall, but mostly for tax reasons. But sometimes you have a student that leaves employment at the middle of the year. Maybe they graduated in December and then they're leaving campus. Maybe they just resigned. They just don't have the time anymore. So I'll show you a copy of this form in a little bit. But that way you can fill it out, get it to HR, and then we can deactivate them in the system and get them off your approval list. And then we can have a record for it in their student file. Again, the housing information, since it's good for both employees and their supervisors to know. And then if there's any questions on payroll, Sarah Gartman does payroll and benefits, and then Allison Wolters does the student employment. So either of them can help with any questions regarding the student payroll. So next I'm gonna pass it over to Whitney, and she's gonna talk about posting on Handshake.
Okay, can you hear me? Good, okay. Okay, so many of you have heard of Handshake. That is our online career engagement platform. So the difference with this new platform is we've actually simplified the posting process for you. So you actually do not need to create an administrative Handshake account. So if you've tried doing that and tried creating a Handshake account and I've declined you, that's the reason why. It's actually just a form that you need to fill out when you're looking to hire a student employee. So where Lisa showed you on the employee tab, there is a link to this form that you just need to fill out all the needed information on this sheet. This is basically what builds then your job description that we then go into Handshake and post on your behalf. So that way you don't have to remember logins, create a profile, do all these things. We then set you as the contact person for the job that you're looking to hire for. Once a student applies, and I'll show you this in a second on Handshake, you then receive an applicant package. It'll come via email. You'll see the applicant package, and all of the materials that you requested that a student submit upon application should be in that applicant package. So this is just a little snippet of what some of the information that we would need. If you have a minimum GPA or not, some departments do, but other than that, it's pretty similar to just a job description that you'd find. Again, if you're not sure the approximate wage, please contact HR for that. We are usually just inputting $7.40 because that's typical. So if it's different or if you aren't sure, please make sure that you figure that out and put that in there for us so we can make sure we reflect what you're accurately paying. For the required documents, these are the things that students have to have in their Handshake profile, and we'll send you if your job requires it. So anything that you check, we then in the back end on Handshake put that as a requirement for application. I've had some questions if someone's not indicated anything, like any application materials. We've left it blank in the past. And what that would do is if a student applies, they're just sending you their name. So if you don't indicate what you want our students to be sending you, you won't get anything, you'll just get a name. Application instructions. So students can do one of two things. They can actually apply through Handshake. They can click the apply button. I'll show you in a second what that looks like. Or if you prefer it to be some other way, you can indicate the application instructions here. So if you prefer via email, if you prefer that they stop in and introduce themselves to you, whatever that might be, this is what we're going to put in Handshake as how we want them to apply with you. Yeah.
I've done it both ways where I've had asked the students to just respond, email me directly, and I've also had them go through Handshake. And I don't know if it's any different now, but I'm finding that going through Handshake, there is quite a lag at times, sometimes of months.
It is a little different now. So previously, Handshake only had one option where you, as the administrator, so me in the back end, had to approve documents in order for them to be used as a application submission. So if we didn't approve it or it's that pending, it wouldn't submit their application. Now that Handshake has given us the option to bypass that, so we can just say in the back end, yep, we suggest changes on your resume, schedule an appointment with us, but it doesn't stop the application from actually going through anymore. So previously there was that lag, but now that should be eliminated. And then we indicate an application, we'd like an application deadline. As an approver, you get notified if you're if you are a supervisor or listed as the contact person, you'll get notified when your application deadline is approaching. So if you still haven't filled that position or it's maybe there wasn't one provided, so we put it out for a couple of years until we were told to take it down, that's what would happen. You'd get an email that says your application deadline is approaching, and if you want us to extend it, we'll do that for you. Okay, so I'm just going to go to Handshake really quickly. So this is the student view on Handshake. So I get a lot of questions from students saying, I can't find on-campus jobs, I don't know where they are. Handshake, it's actually really easy to find. It's about 2 clicks just to get there. Every single one of our students on campus, if they are a registered student, have a Handshake account. They just need to activate it. So if they say I don't have Handshake, they do. They just have to go to the website and actually activate their already pre-existing account. So right now we're in my fake account. And when they log into the home page, one second. This is kind of what it looks like when they log in. They can also then go to jobs right on the front here. This will bring up all of the jobs that are on campus, part-time, internships, pretty much anything. Any employer that's ever posted with Concordia, they'll be listed in here. To find on-campus jobs, all they need to do is click on campus and it will filter to all the known on-campus jobs that have been posted in Handshake. When it's blue, that means it's on Wisconsin's campus. And if it looks like this, that means it's an Ann Arbor posting. Sodexo also appears in here because they are technically on campus, so they'll show up in here as on campus as well. So all of the known on-campus openings will be listed in here. So just like any online job board, they can click it and they can read the job description that's listed in here. So this is what was given to us through the form that was submitted that I just showed you a little bit ago. It'll also have the application instructions down here. Now, if I, as a student, want to apply through Handshake, all I would need to do is click this apply button, and it will tell me the application materials that were required and what I need to upload to move on. Then I can just submit application. Okay? So it's pretty straightforward for the student view. You should, as then a supervisor, receive those applicant packages. If you're not receiving applicant packages, it may just be that nobody applied yet. And so again, part of this whole Lunch and Learn was to kind of, encourage and get Handshake known out there a little bit more and getting our students utilizing that piece, because this is the best place that we can post all those on-campus jobs. So if you're pushing them to go through here and find those on-campus jobs, then you'll see more applications probably coming through Handshake versus via email, et cetera. So any questions about the process? Okay.
So I'm just going to circle back real quick and go to some of those resources that are on the portal. The first one is the handbook. It's only 9 pages. It's not long. It's very short. Doesn't have as much information as, let's say, our regular employee handbook. But it does have a lot of great information. So I just wanted to touch on a few things in here. Like I was talking about before, students are getting on-campus employment to increase their skills and experience with working. So these are some of the traits that we would hope that they start to improve while they're working in departments. That honesty, dependability, responsibility, taking initiative, problem solving, teamwork, working, in some of the departments are really big, some are really small, getting that diverse experience, because it's not only helping them learn these skills, but it's also helping them figure out what they want to do when they grow up. Because they might be in a program right now and then work for a certain department and say, you know what, I really enjoyed that. Maybe I should take a look and see if maybe I want to tailor my program a little more towards that direction. But also we want them to gain the ability to learn on the job, because a lot of them, they're going to graduate and they're going to get to their first job and say, whoa, I don't feel prepared at all. But a lot of getting a new job, getting out of school, is figuring it out. You know, you have that basic information that you got from your program, but then a lot of the learning happens once you actually get into that role. Learning by doing is, you know, a lot of us learn best by that. But if you have the education and then you see somebody do it and then you do it yourself, that really helps it sink in. Helping students gain self-confidence. You know, we have a lot of students that come on campus and you can just tell that, you know, they may have grown up in a smaller town, or maybe, you know, didn't socialize with a lot of people. Maybe they went to a smaller school all the time when they were growing up. So giving them that self-confidence and leadership skills that, you know, they can really do a job and do it well. And every time they help your department succeed at something, you know, that's going to help their confidence. Adaptability is a huge one. You know, the environment in a job changes all the time. So to help them get used to that type of thing where, you know, you're, okay, coming into work, ready to do work on your to-do list, and then all of a sudden you have 5 emails that you have to work on and your to-do list keeps on, you know, getting pushed to the side. You know, just adapting to those differences. Group and interpersonal effectiveness, cooperation, you know, talking to people, you know, instead of through electronic means, helping to learn that politeness, whether you're on the phone, through email, in the office, you know, customer service is key. Like no matter what position you're in, whether you're the person opening the door for someone, the first face they see, or the last person they see. You know, customer service is key no matter what position you're in, and really helping students realize that. And then just their effectiveness in a professional setting. Like I said, and have been reiterating, you know, we want them to learn and grow to make them the best people they can be once they leave our campus. Student eligibility. On-campus employment is available to all students who are registered for classes during the current semester. So if they're not registered for classes, then they shouldn't be working on campus. For summer employment, they should be registered for fall or for summer. The other option is if they just graduated. If they graduated in May, we do allow them to work over the summer. The one caveat to that is if they want to live on campus, they may have to move out a little sooner than August 1st, just so that residence life has time to get the dorm rooms ready for the people who are actually coming back to school in August. We talked about federal work study. Again, great way to help save some money and increase the number of students that you can actually have in your department. International student eligibility. Just wanted to touch on this because international students can only work on campus. So a lot of times departments will say that they've gotten a lot of international students, and they're like, well, why is that? You know, and it's because they can only work on campus. Their main reason for being at Concordia here is for education. So they're not allowed to go off and get a part-time or full-time job elsewhere. So if you have the ability and openings to hire international students, just want to ask that you keep that in mind, that, you know, they need experience and this is the only place that they can get it. They do, if they haven't worked on campus before, it does take a little longer in the hiring process because if they don't have a social security number already, they have to fill out some paperwork, go to the social security office and get that taken care of because we can't put them in the payroll system until they have that social security number. So it may take a little bit to get them started, but the rest of the paperwork is just the same. Let's see, we talked about the paperwork. Summer employment we'll get to in a second. Let's see. Responsibilities. You may have certain responsibilities that are specific to your department, but if you don't have something already done, this is a great place to start. Take a look at the handbook, just look at these general things, you know, arriving on time, be punctual, be ready to work, communicate with your supervisor, take initiative, you know, if you have a question, ask, you know, all those general things, you know, are responsibilities of our student workers. And if they're not meeting those responsibilities, you know, it's time to have that conversation with them and say, hey, you know, we want you here, we think you can do a good job, but we need you to work on these things. And that's where that evaluation can come in handy too, so that you can put it in paper and then you can both talk about it. Just a reminder, confidentiality is always a good topic to go over with your student workers because a lot of them will have access or overhear things that shouldn't be coming out of your office. So just reminding them that that information needs to stay in the office. They shouldn't be talking to anyone else about it unless it's part of their job and they were instructed that it's okay for them to do so. Usually it might be, the supervisor telling a student, go talk to this department and let this person know this. That's one thing. But we don't want them talking to other students and, letting out confidential information. Dress code is similar to our employee dress code, just neatness, cleanliness, having that professional attire. Some departments might be a little different, especially like athletics, they might need something, or they all need something different than maybe an advancement or things like that. Work injuries, if a student worker is injured, please let HR know, because if it is bad enough and they have to go to the hospital or the walk-in, we might need to file a workers' comp claim. So please let us know. If HR isn't available, you can let campus safety know. Work hours, this has not changed, so most of you should be familiar with it. During the school year when classes are in session, students may work a maximum of 18 hours per week, with weeks running Sunday through Saturday. So just like regular hourly employees, it just goes at Sunday through Saturday, 18-hour total. If it's like winterim or summer break, they can work up to 40 hours a week, but students should never have overtime, so you always want to keep an eye on that. Also, during the summer, if a student is enrolled in a class, they can only work the max of 18 hours during that class. Once that class is over, they can go back up to 40. Another thing to keep in mind when students are working more hours like that, if they're working over 6.5 hours, they should be taking and logging a 30-minute unpaid lunch. So if they're working 8 to 4:30, make sure they're taking that 30-minute lunch and not just logging it. Actually tell them, go take a lunch. Because a lot of students might be just working at their desk, eating lunch while they're doing it. But technically, if they're eating and working, we should be paying for them. So we want them to get in that habit of taking a break, get up, walk around, do something. And then come back. And it just helps productivity and concentration and all those things. Chapel attendance, students are allowed to go to chapel just like any other employee. The only thing we ask is that if that's going to be included in their schedule, that they'll only get paid for it if it's not the first or last 30 minutes of a shift. Because if you have somebody working 8 to 10, but that last half an hour is during chapel, they're not going to come back for 5 or 10 minutes and really be able to do something. So maybe just schedule them 8 to 9:30. But if you have them scheduled 8 to 11, let them go to chapel. We want people to go to chapel and encourage that. Online timesheets, it has become it's becoming somewhat of a little problem or issue with students. They're feeling that the paper timesheets is just an alternative to the online timesheets. Paper timesheets should only be completed in rare circumstances. You're out of town, sick, something, don't get a chance to submit the online timesheets. So we really want supervisors to be keeping an eye on their student employees and making sure they're submitting their online timesheets. For one, it's a lot easier for everyone involved. And number two, it helps for tracking and record keeping. And saves time on the back end for everyone. So if you're seeing that your student workers aren't submitting their online timesheets, set a reminder or put a note on their desk or ask them to do so. But it's part of that responsibility that we're helping them to try and learn. Because once they get into a real job outside of Concordia, if they don't submit their timesheet, they might not get paid and they might not be as nice as we've been being. So try to make sure that they're submitting on time. And also for supervisors, please make sure you're approving on time. And if you miss that noon deadline, as soon as you notice, email us and let us know, sorry, I missed it, please approve these 3 students. A lot of times it's really easy just to take a screenshot of the students and then send it to us. But those emails that we send out, we do it manually. We go through the list of everyone, look who the approvers are, and then put it into an email. So being able to approve that first day after the pay period really helps us out a lot, and we really appreciate it.
I think it's a better way than what I'm doing when I have a correction for a student worker, like if they put their hours down incorrectly, is I send it back to them in the portal, just return it. But then I send an external email to their CUW account. Is there a way, and I can ask later, but that I can send a note to them with the correction, that they get notified, or is an email best so that they can see it?
I don't think there is a way to do it in the portal. There's a notes section, but I think that's only available to them.
Okay.
So yeah, the way you're doing it,
Can they just correct it?
you could just correct it. If you know what it is, you could just make
I
that
can
correction.
just make it, okay.
And then just send them an email like, hey, I've changed this. The main thing if you're doing that correction, to try and let them know, or if you're going to see them, you could let them know, but yeah, email. Pay periods are the same as us. Evaluation we'll talk about. If there's ever any issues with student workers, please talk to HR. Let us know what's going on so we can help you deal with it. It might be a simple thing, but it might be the start of something that turns into a bigger issue. So if we know about it in the beginning, then maybe we can help deter it from turning into a bigger issue. But contact information, and then the last page is that confidentiality statement and acknowledgement of the handbook. Any questions on that stuff? No? Okay. Then just quickly, I'm just going to show you the evaluation, which is on that student supervisor tab. So it just goes over a lot of those different things: attendance and punctuality, attitude, initiative, customer service, professionalism. And then you can put some comments there, sign it, and then if you'd like, you can hang on to it, or you can give it to HR so we can keep it in their file. Because sometimes we do get verifications of employment for students, and usually we don't look in the file, but sometimes, we need to. Or if somebody else is having an issue with a student, it's good to know that something may have been going on, or if they were really just a spectacular student. If students leave, this is a separation of student employment form. So you can put the department, supervisor, the student, and then the different reasons for the student leaving. Maybe they resigned, just didn't have the time, but they're still here, resigned, they graduated, withdrew from Concordia. And then the two last ones are the ones that you should talk to HR before you do anything. Unable to meet department needs, what exactly does that mean? What exactly happened? Let us know so that we can help, maybe transition them to a different, department that might help them. Or so that we can have a conversation with them, just say, if you want to continue working on campus, these are some things that, we need you to work on because it's not working out. The last one, definitely for sure, discuss with HR. If they, falsified their timesheet, if they stole, if they shared confidential information when they shouldn't have, all those things that are just, we can't tolerate at all. Talk to HR and let us help you take care of that situation. Because one, we want to make a note so that we know that happened and that we don't let them be going around to other departments and working for another department where they might do the same thing. Last day worked, always good so we can put it accurately in the system. And then student signature and supervisor signature. Sometimes maybe they graduated, you're not going to be able to get the student signature. You can just check the box. They were unable to sign it. And then you can just turn that into HR, and then we can take care of them in the system and remove them from your department. And then the last thing, any questions on any of those forms? Is going to be the summer employment. So Sarah's going to talk about those changes. And I also put the gray sheet on the tables. That is the new form for summer. So if you do know you have students that are coming to work for you for summer, you can grab those and take them with you.
Okay. So we made some changes to the summer housing this year, just based on some of the frustrations last year that were felt in your departments and then also with us and by the students. So As Lisa mentioned, the gray sheets are on your tables. The front of it is just if employees are looking to work on campus, and whether they live on campus or not, any student who is going to be working on campus needs to fill out the front of this gray sheet. But there's also a little box to check if they are looking to live on campus and be eligible for having their housing fees refunded. And that is where they will fill out on the back of the form. So basically, what we've done in the past is we've charged students $300 per paycheck who are living and working on campus. And then at the end of the summer, as long as they've hit 450 hours, they had those funds reversed to their student account, which it was fine, and most of them did. I would say only 1 or 2 people ended up not getting their money back due to not hitting hours, but it left them with very little money to spend over the course of the year, or over the course of the summer. The money would go back to their student account, so sometimes it would hit the account and then it would be applied towards tuition for next year, and they still wouldn't feel that income. So we tried to kind of get around some of those issues. So what we're going to do this year, we're going to give it a whirl and see how it goes. We're going to assess a housing fee of $1,995 at the beginning of summer. That's within like $5 of what they would be charged if they weren't on this plan. I think $5 less. So as long as they put in their hours, which we've also changed to 350, they will have that fee refunded to their student account. So it's going to go on in the middle of May, and it's going to get reversed off by August 15th. So the hours that we're tracking, it's no longer 450, it's 350. We're tracking from basically the weekend after graduation through July 31st. So August hours are not being taken into account at all. So we just dropped 100 hours. They still should be able to take, it's for sure a week of vacation. It's probably more like 9 days when you include 4th of July is in there and the day after the 4th. So take those into consideration. They can't be taking 3 weeks off and still hit their 350 hours, but they should still be able, if they've got a family vacation planned in June, it should not be an issue for them to still hit their hours. Our thought behind this is that we really don't foresee, if somebody has worked for you for the entire summer, we don't see them bailing on you at the beginning of August when there's, 2 weeks before school starts. So we don't think you're gonna see a drop in attendance. And if you do, you are gonna see it anyway because of athletics. So many of the athletes are going back August 1st that you were losing them anyway, and that was a tracking nightmare. So, as Lisa mentioned, if your student employees are in classes, they are limited to the 18 hours a week. If they're taking a 6-week class, during those 6 weeks, they can only be working the 18 hours, but then outside of that, they can be working the 40. So you just have to have those conversations with your students, know when they're taking classes, and plan accordingly. The fee will stay on their student account. We are fine with it being on their account. If they find that they need to add a class or drop a class while they're in, whether it's a summer class or whether it's a class for fall, they're going to find that there's a hold because this money is sitting out there. But they could contact the business office, and the business office knows this 1995 number, and if they see that, they will release the hold for the day so that students are able to do what they need to do on their accounts without paying that in full. As with last year, meals are not included. It's the student's responsibility to follow the proper checkout procedures. And it's very clear on the form that they're signing that it is an obligation to the university. So they are agreeing that they're being assessed this fee. If they don't meet the contractual obligation of 350 hours, they will have to pay this fee, and it's a debt to the university. And that might mean that they can't register in fall if they wouldn't hit their hours and then haven't paid it. Yeah.
Can the deadline for getting the 350 be extended if they end up having to take an another class or something that they weren't planning on?
We count class hours towards their 350. So the spirit of this is to get people to work on campus. So we don't want people just taking, 3 classes and not working at all. But if you've got, for example, we have a student who is doing, I think she's in the OT program, and so she's got 3 weeks where she absolutely cannot work. We're going to give her credit for the 40 hours for those 3 weeks, but then she's going to work for us the 40 hours the rest of the summer. So situations like that, we will give them credit for their on-campus activities, including school. Yeah.
Is there any prorating? It's $350 for that, or if they don't make the $350, it's the whole fee or nothing, right?
Right, correct. Yep, it's all or nothing. Any other questions on that? If you have any, if they come up, because it's new this year how we're doing it, we're hoping students appreciate the fact that they'll have their paychecks to work with over the course of the summer. We hope that will encourage students to work for us as opposed to going down the road and working because they really need that money. The end result should be the same. They should be getting charged and having it reversed right off, but now they've got the money to utilize while the summer's on. Yeah,
I think it's going to be a lifesaver for international students.
hopefully.
We were feeding some of our students last summer because they didn't have enough money after 300 was taken out.
Yeah. Yeah, because even if you work full-time for 2 weeks, when you're only making $7.40 an hour, you pull off that 300, you got $50 to get you to the next week, maybe, or to the next check. So, yeah, hopefully, we're hoping that this is all very positive. Any other questions on the summer? Anything else?
Let's see. So yeah, that is everything. And then we just wanted to have you save the date for the on-campus student employment fair. This is the one at MEC 1. Is there one at Ann Arbor, do you know? I'm not sure. Okay, probably. But so Wednesday, August 28th, that's the first Wednesday after the fall semester starts. So just keep that date in mind. Be a great opportunity to meet students in person and, get a nice list of students that are looking for work over the summer. And then I think that's it. Any questions on anything else?
Can you just tell me once again, because I can't remember, if you hire somebody back the next year, what's that rate? They get more for that, right? They come back.
Right. If they come back to the same department, they get a 20-cent raise. Unless there are a few departments that have a higher rate, they just get that higher rate. We don't give them. Right. Or they get the raise in the summer, right?
Yeah, we started in summer. So yeah, if you've got an employee who worked this year and they're coming back to you in summer, they will get that raise.
What?
Ann Arbor does not.
Oh, in Ann Arbor does not.
And again, that 350 hours starts the week after graduation.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Any other questions? And then just one last thing I forgot to mention earlier, for students who are working on campus during the school year, they don't have FIM and FEO taxes that are taken out of their check. So that's also kind of an incentive for students to work on campus, because if they go elsewhere, down the road, they're going to pay those taxes. So just a little bit extra in their pocket working here with us. So if there's any other questions? Nope. The resources are on the portal. If you have any questions as you start hiring, let us know. Great. Thank you.